Hi, everyone. I am excited to be here live today with Jordan Bowditch. You want to say hi? Hey! So Jordan's a good friend of mine, and he also has this amazing brand that puts on, I think it's Quarterly Quests, right? Through, yes, Mystic Misfit. And you're up to so many amazing things, and I find you extremely inspiring. So was really excited that you said yes to having this live interview today and talking about the hero's journey, which seems to be this like cornerstone of your movement and what you're teaching in the world. So we're going to dive into that today. And I guess just to like share with people so they know how we met. We met probably, my timelines can be a little sketchy. So I'm going to say 4 years ago, about that. Yeah. And we met at Longevity, and Jordan was doing some work there and just really hit it off. And I've found Jordan to really walk, would I say walk your talk? Like in the sense, walk the walk, and like he's very consistent with, I think like your personal values and what you stand for. And, you know, I admire Jordan for like how you just dive in and you're willing to like try pretty much anything and really go deep on the personal development. And I admire that in you big time. So just wanted to set the stage with that. Yes. Well, thank you again for being here. So why don't you tell us a bit more about, your brand, and for the people watching right now, thank you for joining. Exactly, how you got inspired to do this work, because it's very different from what you were doing before. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yes, of course. Oh, I like that. So sweet. Okay. Got it. That's very well said, Jordan. Thank you. And I getting some comments here from several people watching live, and they're just saying that they're having some problems hearing you. So I'm like, no, because what you just said was so incredible. I know they can hear me, no problem. Let me just quickly check in. It says it's hard to hear, no audio. And then Magda was just saying, Jordan, we can't hear you. So it's interesting. So I can, look, I'm going to mute you here. Can you, Kate, talk for Okay, talk for 1 sec here. Okay. Because I can hear you on both channels. So I'm not sure. Let me just check in with Magda and ask. Because you're on your cell phone right now? Okay, I'll just quickly, I wonder if you connect, just like we could troubleshoot it and see if you can hop onto your computer. Is that cool? Let's do that. Okay, I'll chat for a bit with everybody here. So, thank you for joining live. What we're gonna do is Jordan's gonna go grab his laptop and see, guys, if we can get the audio corrected on this interview. So thank you for your patience. And yeah, so essentially Jordan was sharing about his brand, and like he said some really incredible things about, he's strategic in the sense of like who he surrounds himself with, and really like pushing his own edges. And you might not have the same view as other people, but just being like-hearted in the sense of like being open and accepting new ideas and opinions is kind of what he was touching on. I wish you could have heard it. We'll see if we can get him up live. Otherwise, we would have to do the interview at another time, but we'll see here if we can get his audio working. So thanks for standing by, guys. And I'll just ask Magda here. Magda, I know you can hear me, so if you can, once Jordan hops back on through his laptop, if you can let us know if you can hear him, that would be awesome. And then we'll hop into more about the hero's journey. So,
all right. Tell me if you can hear me now.
Okay, I can hear Jordan. Magda, can you hear Jordan?
I feel like I fixed it. I feel good about this.
Okay. All right. Okay, so Jordan.
Yep.
Okay, so Magda, I think, is saying she can hear you, and Jordan, can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
What? Okay, so totally fix this. Okay, this is great.
Yes.
Okay, so rewind, and we'll start that over for everyone. So thank you for your patience. And so Jordan was actually sharing, and I know you all heard me, but Jordan was just sharing specifically about how he got into this work.
Yep.
And what I was getting from his message was really like, we can just kind of recap on that, like being around people that are, you were saying, like-hearted, like open and different, and having different perspectives, and really letting that like mold and shape you as a person.
Absolutely. So let me see if I can perfectly regurgitate everything I just said, because I think I said it as well as I've ever said it.
Yeah.
Mostly serious. So with Mystic Misfit, it's myself, my older brother, Ryan, and our best friend, Kevin Oros. I'm the Chief Infotainment Officer, the CIO. Ryan is our CEO, our Chief Empowerment Officer, and Kevin's our CSO, our Chief Shamanic Officer. And so we all have a different flavor that makes up the Mystic Misfits. And really what we sought out to create was what we craved most, and that's community, people. And I was mentioning this concept of the 5 people you spend the most time with, you are the average of those people. It was this really famous study done, and I want to say like the 80s or 90s, that followed around a bunch of people and kind of analyzed who they spent the most time with and how that formed the person that they were, and found these really interesting findings within that. And so what I try and do is, or what we try and do with our movement, is surround ourselves with like-hearted people, as you mentioned, but not necessarily like-minded. And so actually, I really try and find people that are not like-minded, that are from different walks of life, that are international, that are from a completely different culture, is something I'm really trying to cultivate in my life. Because I find that surrounding myself with those people, it challenges my beliefs, the things that maybe I just take for granted that were instilled within me at a young age, and I accept as fact, right? Because our perception is our subjective reality, but it's not necessarily reality. I mean, what the hell is reality? We could dive into that, but so finding the people that are not like-minded, but like-hearted, still coming from that fundamental foundational place of love and seeking to understand, not judging you, not saying, no, you're wrong, I'm right. It's like, well, no, okay, I hear you. your life's experience has shaped this perception that you have. Let me give you my perception, and let's like come to an understanding with one another. And I mentioned this quote that my pops likes to say, and it's iron sharpens iron. And so having people around me that are constantly challenging and questioning me and not judging me through that process allows me to expand and grow and think beyond my limited capacity.
Yeah, and your current paradigm. And
exactly.
That's amazing, because I had a moment of reflection while you were saying that, because I'm like, okay, because that kind of nailed it for me. Like growing up, I felt that I was the person that like I love people, and having that space of like being like heart centered, or like being at like just how you worded it, it just really hit home to me. Because I'm like, wait a minute, that's like how I feel I've been living my life.
Yeah.
People tend to go, oh, like-minded, but I've been able to, in my own life, be around such diverse people. I actually used to get hazed for it in high school. Like people would ask me like, why are you hanging out with those, I know this is going to sound so funny because it's high school, but like, why are you hanging out with those Gothic people? Or why are you with those people? Like I would just get like hazed about it all the time. But if I ever had a birthday party, I'd have every walk of life coming, because like I saw the beauty, and like, I love these people. We're all different in what we enjoy, but it's just I like the variety.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that as well. And I mentioned this before when we were talking, but got to give props and a shout out to my man, JP Sears. He really, I've always felt this, but he brought the words around to describe this feeling of the like-hearted versus like-minded. And actually, this is his shirt here, Conscious AF. You got to check out his YouTube videos if you haven't. They're hilarious. It's a lot of satires on nutrition and wellness, and he has a great sense of humor. But yeah, big fan of that. And it's funny you said growing up, how you sought to like, how you kind of were looking at people for their heart and not necessarily their mind. And I feel like I was always seeking that as well. But I grew up in a small town in Ohio where it's like pretty much everybody's like-minded. It's like that. Well, I'm going to get maybe a bit controversial here, but to be gay was wrong. If you were a homosexual or lesbian, it was wrong. And it was just understood. It was the whole Bible thing and religion. It's like, if you're going to hell if that's the case. I remember I grew up just thinking and believing that as fact. And then moving to California as a young man and being exposed to different ideas and really questioning religion and all the things that it instilled in our culture, I was like, whoa, it just totally exploded my paradigm and allowed me to look at things and look at life from a completely different perspective. And it's like, man, that's why I'm always trying to be in different scenarios with different people to challenge those paradigms. Because, man, that's maybe why there's so much war and violence in the world, because we just don't understand one another. And we have this idea that our, again, subjective reality is the objective reality. And that's so far off.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a huge lesson. And that's, definitely something that I've practiced and worked on in my own life. And that can be hard. And I think sometimes when we like come up against someone with extremely different values, that's like in a relationship, in friendship, you can have some friction. But if you can seek to understand and really work on having compassion, and like when I don't understand a human that's before me or someone I'm interacting with, I'm like, okay, with these filters and what's going on for them is like, if I could see a movie of their life, it would totally make sense.
Yeah.
It might not make sense in this like very moment, but it's the same, like some of the quirks and habits I have. And like, I'm like investigating now that I'm a bit older and doing the interior work. I'm like, oh, I actually do question, my beliefs. And I'm like, is this my mother's belief or is this my grandma's belief? I'm like, I'm not sure, but I'm getting rid of this one. So
I love that.
I've done some of that work, and perhaps we can jump into like relating some of this to, for the people watching on the live, like the stages of the hero's journey. Like, how does that tie into this?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so you kind of like teased it when you said, if you could watch somebody's life movie, you might understand them better. And that's everything that we do with Mystic Misfit and kind of my own personal life has the backdrop of this concept of the hero's journey. This was something popularized on the framework was kind of laid out by this man named Joseph Campbell, a brilliant philosopher in kind of early mid 1900s. He was a well-read man, and he looked at a lot of different ancient mythologies and stories and books and realized, wow, there's like a very common, tangible theme in all of these. There's a life cycle that these heroes in these stories go through. And so it looks kind of like this. There's 3 basic acts, and then there's a bunch of sub acts. There's like maybe 15 to 18, depending on what structure you're looking at. But the 3 main ones are Act 1, which is the call to adventure. Act 2, which is the adventure / the initiation. And then Act 3 is the return home. And so if you can look at your life in this kind of framework of, I'm the hero of my life's movie. Like if you set the stage for a movie where you're sitting, by yourself in an apartment, you got like an eviction notice on your wall. You got, you leftover pizza and like, that's all you got. And you're just down and out. Everything's bad. And that's kind of like the start of the hero's journey. And then you get this call. You're in this ordinary world of yours. Maybe you've hit rock bottom. Maybe you've had a gnarly tragedy in your life. Or maybe you're just having this crescendous feeling, this bubbling up of something. You're like, I don't feel aligned with like my heart and my mind and what I'm actually living and what my actions are. And finally, you get this call. It's some sort of opportunity, or again, it's that feeling, and you refuse the shit out of it for a long time because we're creatures of habit. We are biologically programmed to not change because there's like safety and complacency and comfort. If we don't change, it's like, ooh, I'm surviving and this is good. I need to stay here. But that's not where the growth and expansion comes from. It comes from doing new things outside, just beyond the threshold of your comfort zone. And so eventually this call gets so freaking loud that it's deafening, and you finally answer it. And when you answer that call, you leave your ordinary world and you cross the threshold into adventure. And at this point, it's kind of like the point of no return. You make this big decision, whether that's quitting your corporate job that you hate. That's what it was for me several years ago. That was kind of like my first big hero's journey. Is I was in a job that, I didn't even hate it. It was like, and this is why it was dangerous and kind of insidious, because I actually kind of liked it. I was respected. I was a marketing manager. I had a team that I managed, and, I had people liked me there, and I had some freedom. The culture was cool. And at first that was great. But, about 3 years into it, between the second and third year, I started just having this feeling that this is not what I'm meant to do. This is not my destiny. And I kind of, again, kept refusing that call until many things in my life kind of came to a head. That culminated to this point where I was like, okay, I got to like shake shit up big time and completely change everything. And so what I did at that point, my answering of the call was, I quit my job, or actually I negotiated a remote working situation. I read the book, The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, which really detonated a bomb that was already going off in my mind, and opened my mind up to these possibilities that I don't have to follow necessarily the conventional path of what a career looks like. And I sold everything I owned, and I started living out of my car with my 70-pound blue nose pit bull, Biggie James Smalls. He's laying over there catching some Z's and some sun rays. And so that was my like extreme form of answering the call. And at that point, it was kind of the point of no return. The adventure had started. And so that's Act 2, is the adventure / the initiation. And so this concept of initiation is like, for me, I think rite of passage when I hear initiation. And this is something that in our culture, I think is largely lost. Like we don't, unless you really seek it out, like in the military, going through boot camp, that's like an intense rite of passage. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a physical thing, but I think that's the lowest hanging fruit. It's the easy one to recognize. But again, we don't have a lot of these in our culture so much. And so you have to seek them out oftentimes. And so for me, this was my rite of passage. And within that initiation, that adventure, you come across allies that are helping you on your hero journey. They're armed to assist you in that process. You come across mentors who kind of transcend an ally. They're really challenging you and showing you the way. And they don't, I think that oftentimes when I hear this concept of a mentor, I think of like an apprenticeship, like a blacksmith. I'm going to go work underneath a blacksmith and learn his trade.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be that way by any means. And in fact, I think in the current paradigm we see ourselves in, it's very different. We have this special opportunity to have mentors from afar. So for me, Tim Ferriss was a huge, and still is a huge mentor. He's a really well-known entrepreneur, wrote that book I mentioned, The 4-Hour Workweek, that completely shifted my mindset. And there's people I listen to on podcasts. There are people in my actual personal life that are mentors. And so these people will assist you on your hero's journey. And then, you're going to come across demons and dragons, and you're going to slay some, and some are going to get the best of you. You're going to get into dark moments where you're like, what the hell am I doing? Why did I ever leave my comfortable, ordinary world? You're just kind of at rock bottom. You feel like there's no return, and it's awful, right? But then you have that final climactic moment where you slay you're in the belly of the beast and you slay him, and then you're like victorious. And then that's kind of like the official mark of the initiate. You've now been initiated. You are officially a hero. And then from that point, there's the return, which is Act 3. And the return is you kind of go home with your insights, your experiences, the elixir, so to speak, to bring back to your tribe and to your people. And that part's really important. And I don't think it gets enough credit, because it's like, oh, once you've slayed the dragon, it's like, oh, it's all done. It's like, well, no, what are you going to do with those experiences? You don't want to just hoard them and selfishly keep them to yourself. It's like, no, share them with your tribe, with the world, with your people, and make the world a better place, if I can be completely cliche.
Yes, I hear you. It's like, I've heard in this work, it's also like, Star Wars is a great example of
totally
like a classic, hero's journey, right?
Yeah.
And, and I see that. And it sounds like we can like go through cycles of this journey.
Yes.
On smaller scales.
Totally.
And on these like life-changing scales. I mean, one could be like, you decide to leave, like someone decides to leave a relationship that maybe is like super tough and they've been trying to do for years, or, moving. Like part of my hero's journey, I really felt, I can relate, Jordan, so much to you, like having this job that was like, it was good, but there was something like in the background that just didn't feel congruent. Right. Yeah. And I worked in a corporate job for about 7 years, and I moved around in different departments, but I mean, I am thankful for that opportunity. I like bless it. And I learned so much. And, but I'm telling you, I had another contract put on mailed to me. I was about to sign another year of my life devoting my time and my energy to this work that I knew on a soul level, I was just selling my time for money. And I sat with this contract, I think, for 3 days. And this was probably 4 or 5 years ago. I couldn't sign it. It was like more money than I had ever made. But I was like, there's just something about this. I can't do it. Yeah. And so that was the start of like my longer hero's journey, was leaving this safe space. And then I ended up taking like a minimum wage job, and just really like took years to discover what my thing even was, because I had no idea. So that was scary. But if I hadn't done it, I could possibly still be in that cubicle. And not that there's anything wrong with that kind of work. It's just, it didn't light me up, and it didn't give me joy in my life. For some people, numbers and spreadsheets, although I still love them, I love my spreadsheets. That works for some people. It just didn't work for me. So I think, again, for me, it's about being in alignment and authentic to yourself and to your soul.
Yeah. Oh man. So many thoughts, feelings, and sensations on what you just said. One thing that you pointed out that I'm happy you did is the hero's journey. It's not just like one thing happening in your life that's the hero's journey. It's many things. There can be like layered hero's journeys in different aspects of your life happening all at the same time. You can experience an entire hero's journey in like one moment, in like a few seconds, in like a few minutes. Your whole lifetime, all of it together is one big hero's journey, and then everything in between. And so looking at your life from this framework is super exciting. Like, I'm a freaking hero, It's like, I'm going to like slay some demons and dragons. It personifies everything in your life.
Yeah. And so for people watching right now, and I love Magda's comments, she's like, ha ha ha, get out of the cubicle. For people watching and, tuning in after, like, what can we add as maybe like a seed of wisdom from this? Like, how does that correlate, or like, how can they approach their next call to adventure? Is that something you guys touch on in your quests that you do through?
Totally. Man, there's so many things. So for me, I think there's a season of life, and this is for me and my brother and some people I know really resonate with this. It's consuming content. There's like when you're in this call stage, for me, and this seems to be a theme with a lot of people, it's consuming, like exposing yourself to a lot of different ideas and concepts and theories, reading, listening to podcasts of people that you admire and people that you maybe aspire to be like in some capacity. What that did for me is it gave me the tool set and the courage to answer the call, because it's scary as hell, but isn't it true that the scariest things in life tend to be the most exciting and the most fulfilling and worthwhile? Mm-hmm. So I think that can be a big thing, is consuming content. But then after you get past that, for me, I'm in a stage now and have been for about a year or two where I don't consume very much content at all. Instead, I've shifted and I'm creating all the time. I feel like, I've got, at this point, I have the knowledge that I think I want. Now I'm applying it, and so that it becomes wisdom, right? Because they say knowledge is power, but wisdom, that like next step, is really where the power is applying that knowledge and creating things that have never been created, using all these different ideas and concepts to create something new.
Yeah. I don't want people watching to like miss that part. So it's worth repeating like what Jordan's saying. And I've actually had a personal mentor of mine like coach on this very topic. And it's so true. So often we can get into like learning is fabulous. And like, I love blowing through audiobooks and like learning and seminars, but the piece that a lot of us can miss is actually the application. So it's like, it's fine that you listened to that audiobook or you went to that seminar, but like, what are you doing with the content? So this coach that's in my life, or someone that is really like someone I've followed is, he's been saying like, start actually putting, like, take 80% of the time you would normally like reading and content and like apply and take action. So that I've been funneling that more into like my business. And because of that, and an accountability partner. Sure. I was able to my buddy that kicks me in the butt. I was able to like start my first group coaching program and do things this year that I was actually really afraid of doing and was probably procrastinating on easily. Sure. So I was like, okay, I actually have a lot more time available to me if I'm not at every other seminar every single week. Cause that's what ultimately I'm a lifelong learner. That's what I want to do. But I was like, whoa, put the brakes on. Like I have a lot of information and knowledge that can be shared. So and to take this a step further here, there's this concept of mental masturbation where and I've experienced this and I still do all the time. It feels good to read a book. You feel like when you can tell someone, I read 5 books last month, or I read 30 books last year. Yeah. And I can like share that. It feels good in the moment when you're consuming this content. Again, there's time and place for that. It's great. But it can also be a dangerous trap of just like thinking that you're being productive or that you're doing something meaningful, but all it is just mental masturbation. You're not actually doing anything that's like has a foundation to it. I have never heard that before. So let me get this straight. Like that would be, you're like, oh, it just feels good to like, you think you're doing more than you are, or exactly. like okay. So hopefully, that's an interesting way to put it. I love it. And I think I'm just going to check the live right now because I think we may have a couple questions. See if we can squeak some of these questions in. We love that you're joining us live. And so Steve, I'm just reading here. I'm not sure, Jordan, if you get to see any questions where you're
might.
Nope. Oh, okay. Access to the personal library. Oh, I think Steve is on and he's just mentioning that there's like a personal library that's just 10 minutes away from Santa Barbara. I think that he's mentioning about like just specifically on the hero's journey concept. Yeah. I think Steve, I'm thinking that is actually on the campus of, trying to remember it, but
Santa Barbara City College or something.
Yeah, perhaps Steve, you can like mention the specific college or institution. Maybe we can, plan a field trip and go visit that place because I'm sure
Yes.
they have a lot of great books and content. Oh, Pacifica. That's what I was thinking.
Oh, that's right. You
I think I
mentioned.
mentioned before we went live, a friend of mine just like was visiting and he was saying he's actually going to be doing his master's there. So I was like very envious. I thought that would just be incredible. So after our season of applying, you know, that could be another thing to learn.
Yes.
So, and for the people watching after too and that are live now, like how can they find out more about you, Jordan? Like what's the best route to learn more about these quests and learn more about, you know, your tribe and what you do?
Yeah, so we have the Mystic Misfits, myself, my brother, and Kevin. We have a bunch of different arms and things that we're doing. We just had our quarterly quest, which is our quarterly retreat. Every 2 to 4 months, we have a retreat. There's typically an adventure piece to it. We just had one here about 3 weeks ago in Southern California on the Santa Rosa Plateau, and there are typically 3 days and 3 nights of a bunch of fun, comfortable activities. I love this word, fun, comfortable, and it's a balance between physical things and things that like really ground you into your body and the sensations in your body, as well as different communication exercises and workshops designed to get you connecting with one another in a more meaningful way, as well as yourself in a more meaningful way. And so mysticmisfit.com, you can find out more information there about our next one. Our next big one we're doing is going to be our annual bungee jumping trip. Bungee jumping into the vertical realm is what it's called. And that's in Northeast LA. It's called the Bridge to Nowhere, San Gabriel Mountains. And that one is super fun. It's a beautiful 5-mile hike in and then out. And we camp overnight. We do bungee jumps during the day and at night. Biggie, my pup, comes with. It's a really fun experience. And then we have these monthly, what we call heroic immersion workshops. And we typically do those in LA or San Diego. And our next one is actually here in like a week and a half, July 1st. And that's going to be in Los Angeles, downtown LA, at this place called the Lily Pad Oasis, which is a friend of ours' house. It's just, calling it a house does not do it justice. It really is kind of a magical oasis of sorts. So that's like typically a full day or a night of a retreat, basically condensed into this and giving you a taste of what that full maybe 3 to 5 day experience looks like in just a day or a night. So we have that and all this stuff you can find at mysticmisfit.com or my personal Facebook. I'm super active on that, as you know, Julia. I do a lot of live videos and I kind of put my life on display in a lot of ways and the different challenges that I'm going through and the things that I'm challenging myself to do. So yeah, you can find me there, just Jordan Maurice Bowditch on Facebook and Mystic Misfit on Facebook. We're super active there as well.
That's perfect. I appreciate you sharing that. And I really respect and honor the work that you and your partners in crime are developing over there. It's awesome. I'll also even add a link to the website in this feed for all of you. And one more question just popped in. So speaking of masturbation, how was holding off same amount of time? How hero's journey? Oh, I'm not sure what Steve is asking about this. Hold off.
Well, I have a feeling if it's the Steve I know, even if it's not, I'll just go ahead and share something.
Sure.
As part of my stuff that I put on display right now on my Facebook, I'm doing lives talking about this challenge that I've been doing called Knob Knob, which is no booze, no masturbation for 30 days. And it's something that, again, Tim Ferriss, a powerful mentor of mine, kind of popularized. And it's this movement where you have no booze and you don't masturbate for 30 days. And I found for me, I would never say that I have a problem with alcohol. I wouldn't say that I have the best relationship to alcohol. I think that that's a fairly common thing, that many people don't have the best relationship, even if they don't have necessarily a quote problem. And then with masturbation, as a man, and I'm sure women can resonate with this as well, but I think particularly men, masturbating to porn and because it's this funny thing that's been popularized now called frapping. Have you heard of this, Julia?
No, frapping? I haven't heard of it.
Frapping. Yeah. So it's like, basically it's aggressively, like the memes around it are freaking hilarious, but it's like aggressively masturbating to porn, and just like blowing your load all the time without ever like thinking of how that affects your holistic health and well-being. And, I found for me that in those periods of my life as a young man where I was just kind of like unconsciously engaging these activities, I should say when I stopped doing that and was more mindful about it and doing these experiments of these 30-day challenges, my whole well-being just feels like it's upgraded, it's elevated. My creativity, my productivity, my motivation, just the way I perform in my life and the way I feel overall, when I can transmute that powerful sexual energy into something more productive, more meaningful, more creative, the sky's the limit. I find that I'm just way more fulfilled across the board. I'm able to serve my mission in a more powerful way.
Oh, that totally does make sense. And I know that, I think it's even, I've heard of like elite athletes where they'll say like absolutely no, sex or masturbation before a big game. Like they want to really preserve that.
Yeah.
There's only been like one time, like a time in my life that I consciously was like, I think it was a 90-day period where I was like, hey, I'm not going to date. I'm not going to drink. I like wanted this like overall cleanse. Like I felt like I needed to cleanse from relationships because I was like, it was this huge distraction in my life. And I have to say I was so productive. And then I've done it before where I've decided, not to drink for a whole year.
Wow.
I think that kind of happened just organically. I stopped drinking and I felt so much better. So, that's really awesome that you're doing that and you're also public about it. So, that is something that's not really talked about. Even just talking to you now and you're talking about like masturbation and some of these words, like I have a hard time even saying them because I'm like,
totally.
Because I'm like, I was raised in the Mormon church. So I'm like, part of me is like, are we like, we can't talk about this.
Yep.
I know. That happening even in this moment for me, but I'm like, okay, you know what? Like this is something that if talked about more openly can really open the door to other men, like working on their sexuality and like feeling more into, what could work for them and honor them more in their lives. So
totally.
Yeah, I see that that's huge. So thanks, Steve, for chiming in and Jordan, sharing more about that personal challenge you're working on. That's awesome.
Yeah. And one more thing I'll say to that point, a big foundational theme to everything I do and we do with Mystic Misfit is this concept of radical honesty, which was popularized by this guy, Brad Blanton. He actually wrote a book called Radical Honesty. And it's the idea that we're not typically a bunch of outright liars, right? Not typically, but we withhold our truth and we withhold our feelings, thoughts, and emotions because we think that we're not like allowed to, that people are going to judge us. And rightly so, that happens sometimes. But I find that the more radically honest and open I am with my life and what's going on, the good, bad, ugly, everything in between, it opens up that space for others to do the same thing. And if we could have a world where everybody is just free flowing with what they're thinking, feeling, and observing, I think we'd have a lot more understanding and a lot more, like you said earlier, compassion and love for one another.
Yeah, that's huge. I definitely can push myself more, I think, to expose more of like what I do behind the scenes. Sometimes I don't do that. And it could be something I could look at, So
I double dare you.
Yeah, double dare me. See what happens. So, well, thanks again, Jordan, for being with us today. Really appreciate it. And thank you so much, Steve, Magda, for those of you that joined live. Appreciate your support and chiming in. And for those of you watching after, please leave your comments. We would love to know that you watched the live and what you thought of it today. So I'll sign off now, Jordan. You take care, and I'm sure I'll get to see you soon.
Awesome. See you, everyone.
Bye, guys. I'm ending now. Signing off.